Serrambi Beach, Brazil. Picture this: crystal clear waters, white sand, and swaying palm trees. A true tropical paradise. But in May of 2003, this idyllic postcard scene was shattered by an act of unimaginable horror. Two teenagers, full of life and on what was meant to be a romantic getaway, disappeared into the moonlit night. Their story would become one of Brazil's most infamous and chilling unsolved mysteries, leaving a permanent stain on this beautiful coastline. What really happened to Liana Friedenbach and Philippe Caff? Prepare yourself, because the truth is far more terrifying than any ghost story. Slight pause: Liana was just 16 years old. Philippe was 19. They were young in love, and decided to go on a spontaneous camping trip near the stunning Serrambi Beach. They envisioned a few days of solitude, just the two of them under the stars, away from the hustle and bustle of Sao Paulo. They told their parents they were staying with friends, a small, innocent lie that would have devastating consequences. Their adventure began just like any other, filled with the excitement of youth. But as they ventured deeper into the coastal forest to find the perfect camping spot, they unknowingly walked into a trap. They were not alone. Lurking in the shadows was a group of men, and their intentions were anything but friendly. Slight pause. The leader of this group was a man named Roberto Alves Cardoso, better known by his chilling nickname, Champinha. At the time, he was just 16 years old, the same age as Liana. He wasn't a mythical monster, but a teenager from the local area, accompanied by a group of adult accomplices. This wasn't a random, fleeting encounter. It was a calculated, cold-blooded abduction. The couple was ambushed, their dreams of a peaceful retreat turning into a real-life nightmare. They were dragged from their tent bound and held captive in the dense and forgiving woods. The terror was just beginning. Slight pause. For the next few days, Liana and Philippe endured unimaginable suffering. They were separated, and the details of what they went through are truly harrowing. Philippe, in a desperate attempt to protect Liana, was executed first. He was shot in the back of the head. Liana was then held captive for several more days. The brutality she faced at the hands of her captors is something that still shocks the conscience of the nation. She was moved from one crude shack to another, a prisoner in a nightmare from which there was no escape. The innocence of her youth was violently stolen in the most horrific way possible. The coastal paradise had become her personal hell. Slight pause. Meanwhile, back in Sao Paulo, panic was setting in. Days had passed with no word from Liana or Philippe. Their families, who believed they were safe with friends, began to realize something was terribly wrong. They contacted the authorities, and a massive search operation was launched. The media picked up the story, and the faces of the missing teenagers were plastered across every news channel in Brazil. The entire country held its breath, praying for their safe return. Hope was a flickering candle against a storm of growing dread. Police helicopters scanned the coastline, search parties combed the dense forest, but the vast, wild landscape of Serrambi kept its dark secret hidden. Slight pause. The grim discovery came 10 days after they first disappeared. The bodies were found, and the condition they were in confirmed the family's worst fears. The nation was plunged into mourning, but that grief quickly turned to outrage. The brutality of the crime was almost incomprehensible. How could something so evil happen in a place so beautiful? The public demanded answers, and they demanded justice. The pressure on the police was immense. They had to find the monsters responsible for this atrocity. The investigation ramped up. And it wasn't long before they had their first lead. A tip that pointed them towards a group of local delinquents. Slight pause. The suspects were rounded up one by one. The mastermind, the teenager known as Champinha, was arrested along with his adult accomplices. What shocked investigators and the public alike was their complete and utter lack of remorse. During interrogations, they recounted the events with a chilling detachment, as if they were talking about the weather. This coldness, especially from a 16-year-old, sent a shiver down Brazil's collective spine. Was this just a simple, albeit horrific, crime of opportunity? Or was there something more sinister at play? Rumors began to swirl. Whispers of police corruption, of a cover-up to protect other influential people who might have been involved. The official story felt incomplete to many. Slight pause, the legal proceedings were a media circus. Because Champinho was a minor, he couldn't be tried as an adult for murder under Brazilian law. This sparked a massive national debate about juvenile justice. Should a teenager who committed such a heinous act be treated as a child by the justice system? He was ultimately sent to a juvenile detention facility, while his adult accomplices received long prison sentences. But for many, this wasn't true justice. The feeling lingered that the full story was never told. Were there other people involved who escaped punishment? Were the motives more complex than simple robbery and violence? These questions hang in the air to this day. Slight pause, the legacy of the Serrambi Beach case is a complex one. It exposed deep flaws in the Brazilian justice system and ignited a fierce debate about crime, punishment, and the nature of evil itself. The case became a cultural touchstone, a cautionary tale that parents told their children. The names Liana Friedenbach and Philippe Kaff became synonymous with lost innocence and unimaginable tragedy. The beach, once a symbol of paradise, was now forever linked with this dark chapter in Brazil's history. Even now, years later, locals say the area has never been the same. There's a heaviness that lingers, a sadness that the ocean breeze can't seem to wash away. Slight pause. So, what are we left with? A horrifying story of a young couple's dream trip turning into a nightmare. We're left with a justice system that many feel failed the victims and their families. And we're left with a haunting question: was this a random act of savagery by a group of criminals, or was it a piece of a much larger, darker puzzle that we will never fully understand? The ghosts of Serrambi Beach don't just haunt the coastline, they haunt the conscience of a nation. The official case may be closed, but for those who remember, the mystery remains very much alive. The faint screams that some locals claim to hear on the wind are a chilling reminder that some secrets are buried so deep, they may never see the light of day. Thank you so much for watching. This was a difficult story to tell, but one that needs to be remembered. If you found this video compelling, please consider liking and subscribing for more deep dives into fascinating and mysterious cases. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you in the next video.